Hey. So, do you know who? Damn. In fact, we were thinking about inviting her to Icarus Fest. This might have gotten her disinvited, but what's her name? She's the other Chapo Trap House podcast
Oh,
host.
Ailey.
Is it Amanda?
Amanda
Ailey?
Ailey. She
Frost.
wrote the book
Yeah.
called Dirtbag that's big this year.
Yeah, it's Ailey Frost. I think it's Amanda Ailey Frost. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, she was just on. This is totally innocent. She's fine. No, but she was on. I think it was Ben's show, Ben Burgess's show, talking about how she's from Indiana.
Oh yeah.
But she was saying something like how Indiana, she's sort of proud of Indiana, but it's also like she called it like just a crossroads kind of place, like a truck stop, sort of as a state, posing as a state with nothing really there. And she's talking about, what do you guys call Indianapolis? She says
Crossroads of America is
no. What's the derogatory nickname for Indy for
Naptown, if you think it's boring.
Yeah, Naptown. I was like, I didn't know. And I've been there. I told you this. I was there like 30 years ago or something. And it was the saddest city I've seen in America, which is saying a lot. But anyway, I thought about you and I was like, what about Bloomington? What about the beautiful rolling hills of southern Indiana, which I also know?
Indianapolis is great, though. It's
one
of the best jazz histories in the country.
It has I would say it has a disproportionately good jazz history. Yes. I wouldn't say one of the best.
West Montgomery, Slide.
I can think of a dozen cities with a better jazz history, but anyway, maybe I'm wrong about that. Really? How many? Who comes out of Indy?
West Montgomery.
Okay.
Hampton, Gary Burton, and with Bloomington, you've got the music school connection. So you got Freddie Hubbard.
Freddie Hubbard. Oh, he taught there.
Yeah. No, he was a student here.
Yeah, he's not from. I'm talking about people born and raised, like you.
Yeah.
I think the only jazz great from Indiana is you. Maybe Slide Hampton, those guys.
Slide Hampton.
He's all right.
Yeah.
Wes Montgomery is decent,
Define jazz guitar.
I love Wes Montgomery. I actually prefer Grant Green a little bit. But yeah, of course. Yeah. Oh, by the way, so I've done it this last week, besides, counting dead children. I've been doing a lot of research into a very important question. Really, for you and me, it's probably the most important question. So, and it's really clear to me, the obvious answer is the following. And I think you know this, but I'm just going to state it. So it's Buddy Rich, Stuart Copeland, and Clyde Stubblefield. And that's just it. Like, that's the top three. I don't want to hear about the metalheads. I don't want to hear about Neil Peart. I don't want to hear about dudes with no swing, no rhythm, no swing, and no soul.
My personal favorite is Dennis Chambers.
Who?
Chambers. Played with Parliament Funkadelic. Went on to be a fusion great and played with everybody. Somebody who has the coordination for everything, but the most rock solid foundation.
But he didn't invent funk and hip hop, which is what Clyde Stubblefield did.
Yeah, but that, again, with all the James Brown drummers, I give all the credit to James Brown himself, because James Brown beat his feel into them with a wooden stick and dictated to them every single note that they were going to play. They were great drummers, but they had no choice as to what they were going to play.
I need to dig deeper into that. You could be right, because James Brown was like a Stalin in terms of running his bands. And he was also one of the greatest musicians who's ever lived. So he, his absolute dictatorial control over the thing made it into great music. I would like to know to what extent he actually wrote the drum parts.
He played on the first records. He'll fine you. He has his ear tuned. He's counting out $5, $10, $15 for every note you get wrong. We fine you if you get wrong. Yeah.
I know about that. Yeah. Buddy Rich, similar dictatorial band leader. But Stuart Copeland says that Buddy Rich is the greatest drummer, but I don't think there's any question. Stuart Copeland is who I want to focus on here.
Okay.
He's musical. His timing is not always perfect. He says this, sometimes gets off time, misses the one, doesn't even have a one sometimes. But he's just playing his own music. Anyway, people don't want to hear about this. What they want to hear about is the other crucial list, which, again, After much consideration, it just seems obvious to me. It's Biggie, Eminem, Mos Def.
Mos Def is an interesting. I like the Mos Def respect.
Underrated.
Yeah.
I mean, he's considered a great, and I think he's underrated.
Mm-hmm.
If he ever went by Shakespeare when he was like a teenager, there's a possibility I saw him freestyle in Washington Square Park in New York City. Because there's a guy who sort of looked like him back then. He was like 16 years old. He would just set up in Washington Square Park and just freestyle off his dome. And I was like, and I remember saying, this kid's going to be huge. But that's what Mos Def does. His freestyle, everything. Freestyles, lyrics. I mean, I think he's a better lyricist than Eminem.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, there's a musicality that Eminem doesn't have. Eminem is an absolute genius, but it's staccato, robotic, a bit mechanical. It's just a very, very, very fast machine. But that's what I hear. I hear that timing of a metronome in Eminem. I don't hear the lineage of a lot of black rappers that goes back to swing. I mean, the feeling you get from some black rappers with particular flow, you can trace it back to swing music and the blues.
Yeah, Biggie sounds like a horn player.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. Never thought about that, but you're right.
Oh
yeah.
Yeah.
And just the way it comes from under here, like, yeah. Wow. I mean, Eminem, I even hesitate to put in the top 3 because of that, but it's so hard to deny his absolute greatness and dominance in every other aspect of the genre of the music. It's funny. He just doesn't, it's sort of like the stereotype's true. I mean, he simply doesn't have the soul, which, you could call the swing. I don't know what other words you would use for what I'm talking about. There's a flow, there's a particular flow, like his flow has right angles on it if you were to chart it out. Whereas it seems like Biggie's flows are rounded. Like he moves more closely to the music with his rapping. You know what I mean? Like he's right. It's so sensual in that way. Whereas Eminem is kind of fucking like a white boy, like a jackrabbit. Just
yeah. He had more swing in the early albums, but especially when he started producing and started getting his own lane, it was just rapid fire machine gun.
Who, M?
Yeah, M.
Yeah, an absolute genius. Nick Gillespie of Reason Magazine told me that he considers Eminem to be the greatest current American poet. And I was like, damn, worth consideration. I think Mos Def's lyrics are actually, as I said, more lyrical, more poetic, more
well, and
sensual.
He's made rock albums. He tours with jazz artists and is like an MC like that. Like he'll.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and then
he was a hype man for De La Soul coming up too.
Was he?
So, yeah. Right. That's where he cut his teeth first.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then all the stuff he did with Talib Kweli, like amazing. So yeah. Anyway.
Although here's the thing, he embarrassed himself on Bill Maher in front of Christopher Hitchens, and then everybody thought he was trash after that forever.
Wait a second. Oh wait, Mos Def got what's this?
Yeah, Mos Def got hitch slapped in like 2009. He was talking about nuclear proliferation. He was and
he did not.
Yeah.
Christopher Hitchens went after Mos Def.
Yeah. It was like,
oh god damn, amazing. This is when the whole world comes together, and like that explains everything. That's the nucleus of everything. Really, it's kind of amazing because I was going to say, but I didn't want to bring up Gaza yet again. Mos Def is also, as far as I know, the only rapper who's been very public about his support for Palestine, and he has for decades. Like he's been passionate about this. He recorded a video of him singing, I think, the Palestinian anthem and crying recently. But also, of course, Hitchens, right, very famously turned against the entire Muslim world, including Palestine, in the last 10 years of his life. Christopher Hitchens was a member of the socialist organization my parents were in, International Socialists. He was in the British wing. So I know this, and I wrote my first published piece about Christopher Hitchens was a review of his biography. So I know, dude. Yeah. That's amazing. It all comes around. So, or it all comes together here. Yeah, no, this is interesting. The IDF, the IDW, of course, they're now almost synonymous these days, is back in the news because Sam Harris refuses to die. And this week, he released a podcast episode on the 5 myths about Israel. And he proceeds to debunk 5 things about Israel that those of us who hate Israel believe. And it doesn't even matter, those things, because the overarching thesis, what he repeats over and over again throughout the podcast, and everyone should listen to it to understand how these people think. The entire problem, the reason October 7th happened, the reason the Gaza war is happening, the reason all bad things, all the children that died, everything, all the bad things, and this is no exaggeration, is because of Islam, because of jihadi Islam in particular. And he has no apparent knowledge of any history whatsoever in Israel or Gaza or Palestine or any of it. It's incredible, dude. Never mentions any actual historical facts. I mean, it's wild. He has not a clue what the Intifada is. He has not any of it. But yeah, he repeats over and over again, and this has been his argument for 20 years. The problem, the reason for the war on terror, the war in Iraq, the war in Afghanistan, 9/11, all of it is only one thing, which is Islam. And we will continue to have these terrible things happen in the world so long as Muslims continue to believe it, or at least tacitly support it. The 2 billion Muslims in the world, he says, at least tacitly support jihadi terrorism. Sam has no interest whatsoever, this is the amazing thing about him, in evaluating the expressed grievances of the terrorists or the people who support them. Like, there's never, I mean, lots of supporters of Israel and the war on terror will say, like, oh, Al-Qaeda says that we, are supporting the slaughter of Palestinians and apartheid, but that's wrong for the following reasons. And they'll actually give you some reasons with some historical evidence and some examples. Sam has no time for that. He is just, that is not important. That is not even material to him. It is all about these bad ideas in these 2 billion people's heads. It's as close to racism as you can get, but it's mostly, I mean, it's also, what is it? It's also, well, just plain stupid. It's reductionist in a way that it's like a 17-year-old kid is when they discover some grand theory, if they first read Marx or something when they're like a senior in high school, and they're like, oh, dude, everything is about class and economics. And then they proceed to explain everything, including like their relationship with their girlfriend in that way. I've known people like that. He's that way with like Enlightenment rationalism. He just applies that everything can be explained whether you are an Enlightenment rationalist and think logically or not. And if you're an Enlightenment rationalist and think logically, like Westerners do, like white people do, you're cool and we don't have to kill you. There will be no war with you. But if you're not, he says, we're not necessarily going to go to war with you, but you probably will so long as you have these ideas. And this is what Sam has said for 20 years, in fact, including, because of these terrible ideas that these people have, or might even have to preemptively nuke them. That's in his book. Yeah, so the idea also, or not the idea, the fact. I don't know, what's Sam Harris's view on Black culture?
Well, I was going to say the other person in that Christopher Hitchens, Bill Maher, Most Deaf panel was Salman Rushdie. And so imagine getting ganged up on by Christopher Hitchens and Salman Rushdie.
Yeah, I mean, so those 3 dudes, turns out, all really suck and are basically racists. Sam Harris is a eugenicist on top of that, and they're all for sure absolutely Anglo-American imperialists. I mean, they want the UK US empire in perpetuity. They want to squash the Muslim self-determination.
Mhm.
They do not want Muslims determining their own governments anywhere. That's very clear. And they've supported every war and military action since 9/11, probably before, but certainly since 9/11. But again,
well,
yeah,
in this exchange, what was it? Yeah, they were talking about Iran getting a nuclear weapon and how we might need to preemptively do something to stop that. And Most Def was making emotional appeals saying, we have the nukes, we're the only people who have used them, and eye for an eye leaves everybody blind. Why can't we all just get along?
yeah.
And he was making these emotional appeals, the kinds that you would probably maybe hear in a song. And then he just got slapped with facts and logic and reason and shut down and made to be an embarrassment. And I think that dismissiveness might be the attitude that the Reddit atheist crowd would have towards Black culture.
Well, because these IDW guys like Bill Maher, Sam Harris, the Weinsteins less on this, but those two dudes in particular, Peterson to big extent too, are cowards also, and have not ever debated anybody of their caliber. I mean, of just their IQ level. You know, Godsod's a great example of this. These are all people who coincidentally have refused to debate me, by the way, even when their own fans have asked them to. Sam Harris was asked in one of his live shows, it's actually in one of his podcasts, in the Q&A, to talk to me, to have a conversation with me. And he said, no, it's okay. I'm good. I passed. But it's not just me. This is an example. You pick Mos Def. I love Mos Def. He's a smart guy, but he's not an expert on nuclear proliferation.
Mhm.
You know, if he had, you know, a scientist from the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, maybe, or Stephen Schwartz, who's a physicist who's devoted his life and his career to nuclear disarmament, nuclear control, arms control, then I would respect these people. But no, they get a rapper on, you know, to debate about what to do with Iran and nuclear policy. What? So I just, yeah, and the idea and the fact that they all now are completely in line with Israel.
Mos Def did a great thing too about a decade ago when the
People.
prisoners in Guantanamo Bay were on a hunger strike. He did a hunger strike with them. Yeah, Yassine Bey, as he's called now. Thanks, Kelso.
That's right. That's right. He's a Muslim.
He went through the force feeding procedure that they have
Right.
terrorists do. That was
That's right.
video that broke through. Yeah, and brutal video to watch him get restrained and have a tube shoved up his nose.
I couldn't
like
do
an
it.
Animal, yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't watch it. Yeah. Yeah, but I knew about it. Yeah. No, I mean, dude is dope. I'd love. Actually, I wonder if I could interview him. It'd be awesome.
But I guess the dichotomy here is emotions, feelings versus facts.
Yeah, Ben Shapiro. Yeah. Oh my God.
Who is the #1 rapper in the world, by the way, right now?
Oh my God, dude.
Our discussion. The #1 rapper in the world.
God, dude.
#1 on iTunes, Billboard.
I forgot to tell you we just should have shown that here. I don't know if you have it handy, but oh my God. I mean, really, it's the kind of thing where when I watched it, which was 2 days ago, I think it had, 12 million views on YouTube or something like that. It was around 10 million views on YouTube. And so that's dismaying. Although I wonder how many are hate views like mine. But I mean, it's the kind of thing where you just want to let it go. You don't want to you don't even want to criticize it. There's no need. Don't say anything bad about Ben Shapiro's rap and this song and this video. No, just let it go. Just let it go out there. You know, it's kind of like Israeli policy in Gaza right now. Just let them do it. The whole world will hate their guts. You know, you don't have to do anything, say anything about it. People will see that these people are monsters, and they will see that Ben Shapiro. Why? So when I was on the left, the main reason I left the left actually was that they were so personally and psychologically geeky and restrained and like uptight and dull and uninterested in anything fun, and just that really deep geeky, you know, intellectual thing. God, I hated that shit. But man, compared to compared to these new right-wing dudes, I mean, the left are like Parisians when it comes to cultural sophistication. I mean, if you can watch that video and think any of it is even slightly cool, we're just going to have a national divorce and it's fine. You can go live in Texas, which is why I support secession in Texas right now, fully and enthusiastically. It's one reason I support it. But yeah, go live with people like Ben Shapiro. Oh, actually, there's cool people in Texas. It's more like, that would be more like New Hampshire, something, you know, thinking of like a right-wing secessionist state. Yeah. I mean, again, I love my free state folks up there, but Jesus Christ, man, it's like, I don't want to hang out with people who like sit in gaming chairs all day long. But it's just, it is, I don't know what to do with that. Who's Tom McDonald? How is he like some huge rapper all of a sudden?
Oh, you haven't heard Tom McDonald before?
I mean, he's the cheesiest human being I've ever witnessed. He is an embarrassment to Wiggers everywhere. We disown him. I mean, you know that the National Wigger Association has already disowned Tom McDonald.
Yeah, we already have Kid Rock. He's the GOAT. Like
well, you and I have an issue about that. There is a factional dispute within the NWA, National Wigger
Association,
about Kid Rock's status within the organization. And I will say in this case, I respect the opposition. There is no such defense of Tom McDonald. There is no respectable defense of that person.
He's the inverse of Macklemore, is what he is.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
So do you know about my article about Macklemore that I wrote for Reason like a decade ago?
Oh, you wrote an article about Macklemore?
When you were like 3, I think it was, I wrote that. Yes, it was about Macklemore, and you'll love it. Macklemore and Lorde, about how they were anti-Black and puritanical in their attacks, their sort of indirect attacks on Black culture, which is what those songs were all about. They were attacking, Macklemore's whole song is about making fun of Black people who spend their money on fancy clothes. It's wild. Thrift shop, that song, thrift store, whatever it's called. Yeah. Oh yeah. Same with Lorde too. It's totally a blasting of the consumerism of Black culture, which is a long and beautiful history of, which I've written about. But anyway, no, Wiggers know who's right, and those people, no. I need to say something else about Wiggers and Black people and all this before we move on to the politics. Do you know, this is right in line with what we're talking about. Do you know M.R.?
M.R. No.
He is the biggest dancehall artist in the world right now. His real name is Moses McHenry, McGeorge, McSomething. He is the whitest Englishman from the countryside of England, I think outside of London. Although I think he then grew up in South London.
Oh, that guy. I'm looking at him now.
Speaks damn near perfect Jamaican patois. And he speaks Jamaican patois, as far as I can tell, like all the time. And if you know what any like dance hall patois too, like full of the slang and oh my, he mimics Jamaican dance hall dupe men better than anybody I've ever seen. He's absolutely, now here's the thing. He is not the Eminem of dance hall. Who is he? He's the Paul Wall of dance hall. People don't know about Paul Wall.
Paul Wall. Yep.
Paul Wall is actually Black. He's same lineage as I am, same color as I am, might even be a little lighter. I watched the first time I saw him. I watched the entire video. I forget which song. I didn't know who he was. I watched this whole video of him rapping, dancing, doing his thing, and I was like, he's a Black guy. That's just a Black guy from Houston. Turns out, no, he's a white dude. I mean, he completely, fully, totally assimilated the way that Mez Mesrau did. Do you know who Mez Mesrau was? The jazz trumpet? What do you play? I think trumpet. Yeah. He was that bebop era, 40s, 50s dude. He completely identified as Black. He was Jewish.
Oh, clarinet player.
Clarinet. He completely identified as Black. He was the weed dealer among jazz musicians. That's where you got your weed from, was from Mez. but he called himself black. He renounced his whiteness, and he spoke black. He married black women. He only was with black women. He was, yeah, it's just you find a culture that you prefer and you join it. I've seen a bunch of right-wing dudes get really turned on by like Japanese and Korean culture and kind of adopt a lot of it, and that's cool. But when you adopt a black culture, oh no, you're an idiot. Guess who has more fun? Anyway, so yeah, M.R. He has this huge song out. It's called Turn Red.
Yeah.
The chorus is,
yep.
When I fuck the, can I say this on YouTube? He does. He says it on YouTube. His song's on YouTube. I think it's when I fuck the pussy turn red. Now, that's the kind of lyrical, genius that you don't know. It's people don't know about dancehall. It's nastier even than American rap. It's like the nastiest music.
And violently homophobic.
Oh, good. No. Oh, I mean, it is not unusual in Jamaica for gay men to be chased down in the street. I mean, like, I've seen videos of just randomly, just gay man gets identified on the street in Kingston and just get a mob will just chase him down and beat the fuck out of him or kill him. All right, let's do something.
I was going to say Macklemore has been good on the Gaza issue. And
too bad. Yet another idiot leftist on the right side of this one. Oh, today, what did these assholes do? What did they do? Shut down, I think it was in DC. They shut down all the
streets, yeah.
Freeways.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, because a bunch of shows that I watched were saying they were late to the studio because of the people. Guys, that can kill people. That can kill people. You're blocking ambulances. You're blocking people rushing to the hospital. You're blocking pregnant women who are in labor, who are trying to get to the hospital. You're blocking all kinds of people from extremely important, life-changing appointments with all sorts of people. What if someone's dying and you're going to see them for the last time? You're taking your kids to see their grandparents when they're dying. Like, what are you doing? This is going to alienate everyone from this cause. In fact, I've seen it happen. I've seen a bunch of dumb right-wingers who might actually be persuaded to not support Israel say things like Clay Travis, I'm thinking of, right? A smart guy, right-wing, does a sports thing, does some politics. He doesn't know shit about Israel. But he saw these assholes like surround John Fetterman's house or whatever, which is fine, and block a freeway and shit. And he's like, yeah, if these are the tactics they're using, I know that their cause is unjust. I mean, I hate that the left are right on this issue. I hate that I have to join with them on this issue. The amount of lunacy, authoritarianism, disregard for really working class life, which is what blocking bridges is, and I was one of the people who pioneered that. I was one of the first 10 people in the Bay Area to block the Bay Bridge. And this was in 1991 at the beginning of the Kuwait War. We went crazy and we got this idea in our heads to run onto the Bay Bridge, and we did. And I was like one of the first 10 people. And thankfully the cops actually snatched my ass. But then thankfully again, the protesters grabbed me from the cops and pulled me off the bridge just in time before I went to jail. But we pioneered that idiotic fucking practice. It's one of my greatest regrets ever that I participated in making that cool in the Bay Area. And this is where they pioneered it. And like other fucking movements all over this country have done it ever since. The Brooklyn Bridge, all the Seattle bridges, ever since we did that in 91, this has been happening over and over again. This now with Gaza, it's like every week there's like bridges being blocked all over the country. And I'm just like, you know what? Do you want to kill those children? Because that's basically what you're helping. By doing this, you're turning off people by the droves, and for good reason. Because I'll pick their lives over the kids in Gaza. I'll pick my own kids' lives over the kids in Gaza. Of course we will, dumbass. And that's what you're forcing us to do. It's the most horrible tactic. And by the way, Max Blumenthal, who I just interviewed, and we're going to release that episode shortly. He has the same feeling, by the way, everyone. This is Max Blumenthal. The whole left should watch Max talk about this. all it does is it pisses off and endangers the lives and makes the lives harder for working class, ordinary people who we are supposedly interested in reaching out to. The left should be denounced and publicly, and I should have actually said this earlier publicly, and everyone should have. We haven't until recently. I was just so overwhelmed by the feelings about Gaza that I couldn't even. I feel like I couldn't even criticize the movement, especially in the early days. I mean, and I wish I had. But anyway, now it's time, because this is really horrendous, and it's all over the world too. This is happening. These are huge attacks, basically, on ordinary people. These protests, the way that they're being, the logic of the way, the tactics themselves, not the size of them, not the protests themselves, but the tactics are horrible. Anyway, I just wanted to say that.
And it's the same exact people as BLM, and it's the same exact tactics. Protesting like that is a luxury that only the upper classes can. Either the upper classes can afford to do it, or the absolute lower classes who have nothing to do at all, period, to begin with, have the luxury to not go to work and pour blood outside Anthony Blinken's house all day.
That too, right? Yeah, but I mean, inconveniencing people who are just, ordinary working class people. I mean, just inconveniencing them, just making them 10 minutes late to work, to me is like a horrendous offense. Like, that's just to force your politics on them. Yeah. Which is what this is too, right? You're forcing your politics. Now, I happen to obviously passionately agree with their politics, but I in no way, shape, or form want to force it on anyone ever, even if it's about saving children in some other country, right? Or saving children anywhere. Even at that level, I wouldn't. It also doesn't work. It doesn't work. That kind of authoritarian tactic does not work. Maybe temporarily they'll say, "Oh, free Palestine. Can we go now? Can we go across the bridge now?" But they're not going to be swayed by this. In fact, they're going to be more cynical about it. They're more likely to make a joke about Gaza now than before. Just fucking stop. Yeah. Good God. I hate the left is just so. I mean, it's funny. This is the only thing. This 4-month interregnum is the only time in the last 15 to 20 years when I've had anything good to say about the left and had any good feelings about. I've just been basically on a nonstop anti-left jag for about 2 decades now. Until this, I was like, oh shit, they're the only people who get it. Although there are some really interesting right wingers. I was thinking, why is Candace Owens good on this? I mean, I'm not sure. Tucker is more explicable. He's just he's a true national sovereigntist, America first dude, isolationist, old school isolationist. Dig it, man. It's not exactly my vibe, but dig it. And I get that. So that's he doesn't give a fuck about anybody, any other country at all in that way, which is exactly great. But it doesn't go beyond that, which I would like in this case. I would like a little bit to go beyond that because of the multiple implications of what Israel's doing, which we can talk about. But yeah, why Candace Owens? Why was she? And she came out early too.
It might be her work with Ye. It might be.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Maybe she's a Mos Def fan.
Yeah.
It could be random stuff like that. But yeah,
maybe some resentment at working at the Daily Wire and seeing that that there's this tension, that there has to be this uniformity of thought and opinion immediately when this issue happened at her old home, the Daily Wire.
Yeah. All right, let's cover some news.
Okay.
Because I want to do whatever the latest with Israel, but I really want to get to Texas.
Yeah, the border.
Because there's a whole lot to be said about Texas right now that's not being said, even by people who should be saying it. And I'm kind of shocked by this. Let's do that now, because it's kind of what I'm actually, believe it or not, a little more fired up about. Because it's going to get swept under the rug quickly. I'm sure there'll be some resolution. Abbott will cave in some way or another, and people forget about it. But it's there. Yeah. Go ahead.
I just think Biden doesn't want the PR nightmare of sending federal troops or border patrol to take down the wiring. I don't think he wants.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, no. People understand. This is. I mean, it's. There's probably I mean, I would say there's just as much fear of precipitating any kind of civil war in this country as there is of nuclear war. I mean, I think that those two things are what keep the politicians stopped from taking certain actions, because the last thing, and Abraham Lincoln taught us this, the last thing any political leader wants, any national sovereign leader wants, is the splintering of any of his nation state, the loss of any of the land, the territory, the people, any of it. Because once there's one piece lost, the whole thing can unravel very quickly, and you look vulnerable, and other states can then come in and intervene. It's just from the perspective, I'm thinking from the perspective of a head of state.
If you're the CEO of the United States, you don't want your company to split up.
From their point of view, I am basically an anarchist, so I'm never taking their point of view. But that if you have to understand their point of view and why they act the way that they do, and the way that Abraham Lincoln acted, which was to completely suspend the Bill of Rights and kill more than 500,000 people, and enslave many hundreds of thousands of teenage boys to fight and die for this thing. Wow. Okay. So you're really serious. Yeah, it's that serious. I mean, they're willing to do anything, damn near, including using nuclear bombs, etc. So, to maintain or retain national sovereign integrity. So, yeah, I mean, that's the way Putin has been acting. Although, shit, I mean, he's been extremely restrained compared to Lincoln, compared to other, national leaders who have been faced with this. But Texas. So this is an issue that is such a tangled knot, and very, very, very few people attempt to unravel it. I would say there's two people to look for on this issue, and I don't know if they've done anything on this particular issue, but on the issue of nullification, state and local nullification of federal law and sovereignty, basically. Michael Bolden of the 10th Amendment Center in Los Angeles. Amazing. Michael was on my show years ago. Great dude. And Michael comes from the left. He's sort of more of a libertarian now, but he's basically like, has like Rage Against the Machine, communist background and sort of inclinations, but he's sort of has a libertarian mind now. But that's what he does. He focuses on issues like this. And he points out, and Tom Woods is the other one, my friend Tom Woods, hardcore libertarians, wrote a whole book about nullification on this. And what they both argue, and this is what I love about this, is that nullification, everybody, like what Texas is attempting to some extent here, by trying to nullify federal policy, right? And do what they feel like they need to do in terms of border security. Even though I'm an open borders guy, there's, I think, a deeper, more important principle at issue here, which is why I take the side of Texas on this one. Nullification, historically, in this country, people think of it as what? Secession, the South, the Confederacy, slavery, racism, bad. Oh no, if you look at the history of nullification of states and localities and municipalities, nullifying various federal laws and policies, refusing to abide by, like laws against, say, drug prohibition, marijuana prohibition, immigration restriction, right? The sanctuary city movement. If you at all are favorable toward immigrants, that was at least an attempt. These were all acts of nullification by liberal and left-wing states and cities. It goes on and on and on. I mean, like the whole like raw milk, raw food movement, which the state of California in particular sent, and Obama sent like federal agents into to break up and destroy. Like there was challenges about that. There was nullification, attempts at nullification. It's the only politics really I need anyone to have. Like, you just need to be a decentralist always. Like, that's the most important thing always. That is first in politics. Like with abortion, I'm as pro-choice as anyone gets. But I also think the last decision of Hobbes was exactly right. It's my choice. Like, leave it up to the states to decide this thing. So again, like what Texas is doing is a probably temporary, ephemeral, minor attempt at nullification of the feds trying to allow immigration essentially to support democratic voting. But this should be a left-wing and right-wing cross-dissident movement. There should be in support of Texas. That's what this is about. It's about devolving the power of the United States of America. And the United States of America, the nation state, is the most dangerous entity in the history of the world to exist. It's 350 million people, half of whom are adults. So 170 or 180 million people who are allowed to vote and decide who the commander-in-chief is. And if you think Trump is the craziest person that we could elect as president, that Americans could elect as president, take a look at the knowledge of Americans about world affairs. It's basically non-existent. 90% of Americans don't know anything about anything at all outside this country. Nothing, not a clue. And they will let presidents do whatever the fuck they want in foreign affairs, unless it leads to like the Vietnam War. Then they'll make it upset for a minute. And could we elect someone who really wants to go to war with the rest of the world or with Russia? Of course we could. It's the most dangerous entity on earth. To have a democracy of that size with that kind of nuclear weaponry and conventional weaponry, the ability to destroy everything and everybody on earth in a minute, 5 minutes, at any moment, Americans could elect someone who will kill us all. Like, this is just, I'm amazed that we're still around, honestly, that we've been doing this for what, 70, 80 years. We've been a democratic atomic superpower for 80 years. Whoa. And we're still around? I mean, amazing. So hats off to somebody in the military or somebody for like stopping this. But, you know, think about all the crazier people. Think about Lindsey Graham. He's been a senator, reelected again and again for decades. Someone like that could be president quite easily. Do you think we'd be at war if Lindsey Graham were president? That could happen at any time. So we must break apart the power of the United States so it can do less harm to humanity. It's that simple. It's like the ultimate gun control. It's like this would be real gun control. Control the gun of the biggest government in history. You got to break it apart. We still will have nuclear bombs. I get it. And there will still be air forces. I get it. But fewer. And there will also be more competition among them, which makes them more accountable. So it's truly a matter of life and death, but not just for me and you, but like really actually for humanity. Like, we know this. It's incredible that people aren't walking around all day freaking out about this, that we are a nuclear superpower democracy, right? Where like Americans, who half of whom think that the NFL has fixed the playoffs so that Taylor Swift can be in the Super Bowl and win the election for Biden. I'm not saying there's no truth to that, but I mean, come on now. But that's the least of it. That's for the sophisticated people in America. That's for the people who pay attention to politics, believe that. I mean, the shit that Americans don't know is staggering, and they get to decide who the commander-in-chief is. It's just something else. I don't know. We got to break it apart. So go Texas. Not that the people of Texas want this, but go Texas. Secede.
I want to say on the Tom Woods note, his argument is not the left-wing argument. His argument is that nullification is the American constitutional tradition, in that all the state constitutions that were ratified all basically put in place arguments for nullification, that the Constitution is made up of the states, which are made up of the people. So the Constitution the federal government gets its authority from the states and from the people. And even with the revolutionary split from Great Britain, the whole American tradition is nullifying laws above you that you don't see fit, and that it's an exercise of your own sovereignty that is in the American tradition.
Right. No, but he said, no, he absolutely. So he grounds his argument in the Constitution, where nullification is clear as day by most people's reading. And in, as you said, American tradition, meaning mostly 19th century. And people talk about American tradition. There's only kind of one century that's like old. But yeah. But no, he also says that tradition has enabled many, many, many left-wing and liberal movements to succeed legally. I'm getting echo. Do you hear that? Does the chat hear that?
I'm clear on my side.
Does the chat hear an echo? Because I do. And I'm wondering. This happened before. Oh, I know what it was. I know what it was. Hang on.
Oh, somebody hears it.
Echo cancel. I gotta check echo cancellation. Okay, cool. There it goes. Sorry everyone for that. That was like 10 minutes of should be over. All right, good. So yeah, Texas. Here's some other interesting stuff, like really interesting stuff about what's going on with Texas that almost no one's talking about. So, you know, DeSantis in Florida, Kristi Noem in North Dakota have threatened essentially to deploy their National Guards to Texas to guard the border. You know, defying, like, in your face the federal government, which, again, I'm an open borders guy, but I would take their side. Now, here's what's doubly interesting about that. Not that it's just that's an even more brazen act of nullification in some ways for those governors to do that. Guess where the bulk of the National Guard forces from North Dakota and Florida are deployed right now?
Oh, where?
Djibouti. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. They're part of the war, bro. And they're part of AFRICOM. And they're in Africa. Most of them are on the Horn of Africa. Djibouti. There's a big military base in Djibouti, which is right next to Yemen. So they're important. That's who will be going. That's who is going to war with Yemen. I believe all the fighters coming, you know, being deployed against Yemen now are coming out of the Djibouti base. So yeah, they're from Florida. They're in the Florida and North Dakota National Guards. And so Kristi Noem and Ron DeSantis have said, we're going to bring our men and women back from Africa to defend our borders. And if you want to see the beginnings of the American empire breaking apart, you want to talk about the first secession that must happen in America? It's the secession of the United States from the American empire. And that's what Kristi Noem and Ron DeSantis, who, believe me, I'm no fan of in all sorts of ways, but that's what is happening here. That governors could talk like that. We're going to pull the troops that you're using in the empire back to the mainland to defend our homeland. Meaning the empire, according to those governors, is no longer primary.
Well, you were talking about interesting people on the right.
Wow.
Who are good on foreign policy. If you're a closed borders person, you should be anti-war, because it's the foreign interventions that create the migrant crisis.
As they all have been.
Yeah.
Pat Buchanan, hello. Yeah. Dan McCarthy, hello. Yeah. But yeah. Yeah, that's what's so beautiful about the paleoconservative tradition. To me, it's why I love it so much. The Edmund Burke, the Burkean tradition, which Pat Buchanan is a part of. Daniel McCarthy, our good friend, is a part of. And Dan is like, he's a public intellectual now, and I strongly recommend. In fact, we need to get him on the show or do a course with him again. But yeah, those are the people who have carried that on. And And this is why MAGA, man, is so disappointing about Israel in particular. Although, guess what? They're very pissed off, and I love this. This is so beautifully MAGA. And further proof that MAGA has never been racist. I'm just sorry. It's just never been racist. In fact, I think it's way less racist than any other major political movement or party in this country. The 3 service people who were killed in Syria, not Jordan, it was in Syria, illegal. They're not supposed to be in Syria. What are they doing in Syria? They're guarding the Conoco oil fields there. Oh, gosh. Illegal. Like, been determined. We've known this. Illegal. The 3 service people who were killed at that base by the Iranian-backed militia in that area were all black and all from Georgia. Steve Bannon is fucking furious about this. He is so fucking disgusted. And he keeps talking about how that they were killed. I mean, he's just like absolutely beside himself. That these troops, and he keeps saying from Georgia. He doesn't say black because he doesn't play. This is what I love about MAGA, even though they fucking suck in many ways. Don't get me wrong. But on this, Steve Bannon is actually a good old fashioned true American populist who are actually anti-racist after a while, or I should say non-racist.
Yeah. Well, going back.
He doesn't mention their race. He does not mention their race.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't. MSNBC does. CNN does. Steve Bannon doesn't mention their race. He mentions that they're from Georgia. And most importantly, from America. And he says they should be here and not over there, fighting and dying for what? Well, I want to tell Steve it's for Israel. But because otherwise they are all in on supporting Israel. They're mad at Biden for allegedly like curtailing arms shipments to Israel. I don't know where they get this idea from. They just sent 14,000 tank shells to Israel to use in Gaza. What's funny is that last time I checked, Hamas doesn't have tanks. So what are they going to be using those tank shells against? Anyway, the skulls of children. But so yeah.
The only people who are attempting to think and act post-racially are American conservatives.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. And, you know, my friend Camille Foster, helped him put together a book. He has a book that's coming out soon. Well, not soon, but he's working on a book now that I've helped him with on this very question. And Camille's kind of the leader of this movement, the kind of post-race. And Glenn Lowry's done a series with Camille about this. And actually pretty interesting because Glenn does a good job of like exploring the nuances of this. It's a very tricky argument to make. I'm with Camille totally on it. But yeah, and Camille, though, I think is actually more conservative than libertarian, but certainly of the right in some way or another. And then, yeah, I think, the MAGA movement, who really matters, libertarians are irrelevant, who cares? And the MAGA movement matters. And man, I've mostly been saying bad things about them for a while, but on this issue, which is the first thing they were accused of course, right, was of being racist. No, it's just the opposite. They just are way less race conscious, at least publicly. I don't see them caring in that way about race the way that the left does. But God, the Israel thing, why on earth would MAGA support Israel? Why would a nationalist populist movement support what has obviously been like a colonialist project halfway across the world that does nothing but create trouble and cause these wars, these endless wars that our sons and daughters get sent off to every once in a while, that MAGA hates so much? I mean, is it just because of Jared Kushner? Is that why MAGA is pro-Israel? Because they kind of he led MAGA by the nose to support Israel? What is it? There's nothing, am I wrong? There's nothing organic except a hatred of Muslims, I suppose, that explains it. Like the reason that Sam Harris is pro-Israel is his hatred of Islam. I don't think he's an actual Zionist. I think he just supports Israel because they're anti. Well, he sees them as anti-Muslim. Anything that's anti-Muslim, Sam's with, you know. Same with the MAGA people, right?
The chat is saying they are reactionary and anti-left wing. So if Gaza is the pet cause of the left wing that is blocking their highways, they're going to want to shut that down and impose law and order. What was it? Well, yeah, Gavin McInnes in that debate that you had to slog yourself through. His opening statement was I am a Zionist because I'm a raging Islamophobe. It's because I remember how I felt after 9/11.
Boom.
And I want to support the state that does as much harm to those people as possible.
And that is why Gavin was on my show. Will always have a home on my show. If he ever wants to come on, I will always welcome. It's why I basically love Gavin, even though on foreign policy stuff, on this stuff in particular, like, I think his positions are horrific and lead to the deaths of millions. But, but the honesty, what more can you ask? And I can't be mad at someone like that, being like down to the bone honest. Like, yeah, no, I want to kill these people because of this. Okay, cool. I want an argument for why you want to kill 11,000 kids. And he gave me one. And that's great. Don't give me these dance around shit like, oh, well, if we don't kill the 11,000 kids, Hamas will kill everybody in Israel. Kind of, No, I want to hear like an actual argument, like a real people, adult argument about why now it's what 12,000, 13, 10,000 other women. Why? Like, is it? So yeah, Gavin's dope, man. And I swear to God, I have ultimate respect. He's like the only person on this I respect who's taken that side, because everyone else is just fucking phony, lying, duplicitous. Just the intellectual vacuity of the pro-Israel crowd, and I could name names right now. Many of them are friends of mine. It's just, it's almost like, again, I said this before, it's like proof that Zionism does not equal Judaism.
Well, here's the name on the
Jews are smart. Jews are smart. Like that's, yeah.
Here's the name on the pro-Israel side, Nancy Pelosi, who has been interrupted a few times. And there was a clip that went viral today, a couple of days ago, of her yelling at Gaza protesters, "Go back to China where your masters are from," or whatever.
Go back to China?
Yeah. Damn. I want to play what she said on CNN real quick. That might tie this into something that we've been talking about for a while. So this is Nancy Pelosi on CNN talking about the pro-Gaza movement.
They're in front of my house all the time. So I have a feeling for what feelings they have. But we have to think about what we're doing. And what we have to do is try to stop the suffering in Gaza. This is women and children, people who don't have a place to go. So let's address that. But for them to call for a ceasefire is Mr. Putin's message. Mr. Putin's message. Make no mistake, this is directly connected to what he would like to see. Same thing with Ukraine. It's about Putin's message. I think some of these protesters are spontaneous and organic and sincere. Some, I think, are connected to Russia. And I say that having looked at this for a long time now. As you know,
think some of these protests are Russian plants?
I don't think they're plants. I think some financing should be investigated. And I want to ask the FBI to investigate that.
Okay. So Nancy Pelosi's house is at 2724 Pacific Avenue in San Francisco. It's where her husband was recently attacked. 2724 Pacific Avenue. I've driven by there. It's in Pacific Heights. Really nice neighborhoods. Shocking.
We drove by there.
Oh yeah, you and I. That's right. You and I. That's right.
Yeah.
We totally did a tour there. So 2724 Pacific Avenue, San Francisco, California. I take it that there's constant protests because we're in the Bay Area and we are not happy in this. Even all the commies and all of us here are not happy about this. And there's constant protests in front of Nancy's house, which is at 2724 Pacific Avenue in San Francisco. If you're anywhere nearby, let me know. Hit me up on Twitter. I'll join you there. Swear to God. I mean that. I will. So, because we can't let the commies dominate this shit. Like, they're not the only people who care about killing children. That'd be nice. Scott Horton is fighting the great fight as always on this. He's always been awesome on Israel. And I'm thinking of other people on the right who are good. Clint Russell's great on it. And, being great on it for me is it's just one thing. It's just simply one thing. You have to have one position, one feeling at all. End U.S. support for Israel. That's it. Do that. We're good. Because that's all it requires. If you want to save those people, just ends. You don't have to feel anything about the kids. You don't have to feel anything about anything. Palestinians, except for your own damn safety. And if you have like kids who might be of draft age in the next 10 years, you know, their safety. Like my son, who's got another like good decade of being in draft age. Michael Weimer, draft age. So, yeah, man.
Well, I was going to say, Russiagate here is the psyop that keeps on giving.
How now?
Oh, Pelosi was saying that they're.
Oh shit! Oh god, right. So what she was right. The Putin thing. Okay.
It's all that Putin money we're getting.
She's still trying to tie shit to Putin. Like even this to Putin. Like what? You know, ask her about Putin's relationship with Netanyahu, which is pretty good, actually. Although I think it'd be interesting to see what Putin and Xi do with this. This is a golden opportunity for them. They can move in and they could maybe take Israel away from the US, you know, because I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. Fascinating. No, because the Chinese are pissed as fuck about this. The Russians less so, because they have their own history with jihadis in Russia. The first big set of wars that Putin oversaw was against the Islamic jihadis in Chechnya and also in Russia proper. So they kind of have similar anti-Islamic feelings as the US does. Actually, it's interesting. But China is also China is very pissed at Israel about this. So I don't know. 2724 Pacific Avenue. She's not only saying we shouldn't be protesting to save bombing trapped children, but she's saying that we're doing this because Putin told us to. And now Nancy Pelosi is saying that my mind has been controlled by someone else. And you've listened to her speak, right? I mean, this is not... The thing I want to say about Nancy Pelosi is that everyone should go find as many pictures of her as they can of when she was in her 20s and 30s and even 40s and even 50s. Incredibly hot. And what she should have done is sought a career at the Mitchell Brothers strip club in the financial district in San Francisco, or at the Condor Club in North Beach. She could have replaced Carroll Doda and had a wonderful career actually helping people and actually making people's lives better. But instead of being a stripper, Nancy Pelosi chose to be the head of state, essentially. And she needs to be told that she made a bad career choice by going to 2724 Pacific Avenue in San Francisco. Direct action like that against the people who actually are making the decisions is 1,000 times more effective than blocking a bridge. So, and I'm getting a goddamn echo again. Let me do this again. Okay. I think it's good now. Yeah, no, she's despicable, but man, she was hot. She's still kind of hot. So, I mean, like Corinne, Jean-Pierre, AOC, although Ilhan Omar, I think Ilhan Omar is actually the best looking of all of them. Richard Hanania, hilarious dude on Twitter. He said, what did he say the other day? He says, I support Israel, but I must admit, or it must be said that Ilhan Omar is hotter than somebody. Anyway,
Gal Gadot, I don't know.
No, anyway, I was like, oh, okay. There's hope. Sex will heal. Sex will heal everything. This is the thesis of my book, but all my books, all my ideas. No, it's true. Like we need to embrace that. Make love, not war. Mm-hmm. And Richard is finding his way there. All right. What else?
Yeah. You brought up the Taylor Swift psyop.
Michael Weimer, what is your position on that?
It's both. I mean, it's real and organic.
Wait, real or real and?
It's both a psyop and it's organic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I want to articulate the Jack Mason position on this because Jack Mason is correct on everything all the time.
True.
Well,
he's certainly correct on anything regarding Taylor Swift, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What is Jack's position on Taylor? I don't even know.
She's great. She's
see?
Yeah.
He always hits you with the see, that's how you know the greatness. He always hits you with the thing that's surprising. Like you're like, wait, you would assume that Jack would hate her. But that's because you don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Because she's sort of anything that I think is connected to Americana, like an authentic Americana, Jack has warmness toward, right?
I would say so. And the thing is, she's just a normal white girl. Like she's just a normal, inoffensive, bland white girl that
her music is, I think she's really cute, actually. I think she's like really cute. She's terribly underrated in the looks department.
I would say she is a captivating diva. I would say that.
I mean, I heard from people who didn't really care one way or the other about her, who happened to go to her show, their recent tour, that it was amazing. That it was like one of the best, like men, like middle-aged men who didn't care about her at all. They were like, "Oh my god, greatest show I've ever seen."
And husbands had a great time at the Eras tour.
Dads, it's true.
Yeah.
Dads, you're right.
Yeah.
Weimer swoops in with a penetrating cultural analysis. No, dude, you're right. We should do some cultural criticism. You should.
Yeah. The thing is, Taylor Swift there was a presentation at the Pentagon talking about PSYOPs in 2019, saying that a celebrity like Taylor Swift, for example, could leverage a lot of public opinion during an election time.
Sure.
She has that famous picture where she's cooking those Biden cookies. She has that anti-Donald Trump video.
Okay, no, but that was like 4 years ago, right? When everyone thought that Trump was the Grand Wizard, right?
Yeah.
I mean, all the normies thought that he was the Grand Wizard.
The liberals still do. They just think he's out of sight, out of mind, and think that he's going to jail. So they're not so.
They've pretty much given up on all the crazy rhetoric. I mean, it would be good to revisit especially the rhetoric of the first year, like 2017. I mean, it's nowhere near what it was then. Like they've really changed, right? I mean, they're still anti for sure, and they're still somewhat hysterical about him, but it's different. Like it's right. It's not this constant stream of, oh my God, the Klan is taking over the United States.
Well, they think they're winning. Their narrative is they're winning. Their narrative is Joe Biden is in office. He's going to get reelected, and Donald Trump is going to be thrown in jail, and he's going to be a distant memory that we don't have to talk about.
I'm just thinking about the way they talk about Trump. Kamala Harris did that recent thing. What was that on The View?
But why would you be hysterical about somebody that you've already defeated?
I mean, the thing is, we've seen him be president for 4 years. So it's like whenever some liberal on Twitter tries to talk about, the impending Holocaust when Trump is elected, I tweet back at them and say, we did see him he was president recently for 4 years. So we have a pretty good idea of what the guy will be. Did we see a Holocaust? Were there concentration camps of gay people and slaughter of Muslims and the Muslim ban? Remember that? The first thing in the Trump administration?
Yeah.
The hysteria. I was a part of it a little bit. I went to the LAX airport the day after, and there were I don't know, 100,000 people at the LAX airport just protesting, sitting in the terminals, completely flood. You couldn't get in or out. It was completely shut down, chanting at the top of their lungs. You could hear it from half a mile away. You could hear people chanting inside the LAX airport, something like, I don't know, save, I don't know, whatever. And I'm like, it actually ended up being damn near nothing in terms of effects on people's lives. I mean, there were a couple people who couldn't travel for a few months or something, but I mean, compared to Biden's policy, I mean, good Lord, in terms of death and destruction and what did Trump do to Muslims exactly? Which was the people most in his crosshairs. How about Mexicans? Like Obama detained more people than Trump did.
And Biden has detained more than Trump. And
he's let more people in too, but like what exactly happened under Trump? I'm like straining to think about what exactly he did that we would consider out of the norm, even other than rhetoric, other than words, and hairstyle, and Tanner, and hot first lady.
I have a theory that he's like amping up the spray tan for the election cycle.
God, he had a recent thing. He finally, you know what? For the first time, I think it was today or yesterday, he addressed what his Middle East policy would be.
Mm-hmm. And Ukraine,
4 months. Dude has not said what he would do differently about Israel. Okay, so until yesterday or today. First of all, his hair in this thing, whatever it was, interview or whatever, is just like, it's so Trumpy. You got to go check it out. But but he says, if I were president, it wouldn't have happened. And they're like, what do you mean? He said, Gaza wouldn't have happened. Ukraine wouldn't have happened. None of this would have happened. And there's no follow-up like, well, why? What would you have done to stop it from happening? But you know what? Part of me was like, believed him. In part because of what he did. Like, no one knows what deal he made with Kim in North Korea, but he made some kind of deal that like made that shit quiet for 4 years. We stopped worrying about North Korea, like legitimately, for 4 years. Where else? There was somewhere. Oh, China. I think he basically he just sort of like shut them down by correcting this cheating that they were doing in trade. But China was far less of a problem, far less of a conflict under Trump. Everything was far less of a conflict under Trump. And he had this thing where he would just go from country to country and sort of cut the deals, art of the deal with MBS and Saudi Arabia. I'm not saying each of these was great. The Abraham Accords totally sold out the Palestinians. It's a major reason for Gaza, by the way. The Abraham Accords is a major reason for why October 7th happened.
Yeah, Ben Burgess keeps bringing that up.
Totally true. Yeah, totally true. He did all kinds of bad shit. But like he did have a way of doing diplomacy. And it's kind of a dollar diplomacy. It used to be called dollar diplomacy, where they would U.S. diplomats would literally just sort of make deals sort of brazenly that involved economic assistance or trade deals or whatever in exchange for essentially peace and allowing U.S. dominance, which is what Trump was. That's what he was about. Oh, do we need to grease the wheels over here? Give him a little this or that in exchange for, hey, maybe you don't support the rebel group in this country that's been bombing our bases. I mean, that's what I'm thinking. Long term, it does very little. Structurally, does nothing. Might even prolong these conflicts because of that, ultimately. But in the short term and the medium term, there will be less war. I believe it. I really do. The dude doesn't like war. That's why he's different than Democrats and Republicans fundamentally, and that's why they've tried to destroy him since the beginning, is that he fundamentally doesn't like war. He's not an anti-war pacifist. He'll kill some people, sure, no problem if he needs to, if he feels like he needs to, and won't cry about it. He's not like me, but he just doesn't like it. He knows that it's terrible for business, most importantly, except for the arms industry, but every other industry suffers during war. He knows that. He also doesn't like he loves the military. He really, really reveres people, men who have been in the military, really reveres veterans. And he thinks, God, it is a terrible tragedy and shame that these brave, valiant, beautiful warriors of ours have been wasted. Their lives have been wasted in these wars, like in Iraq, like in Afghanistan, like in Vietnam, that we got nothing out of. This is the way Trump thinks. He's like a businessman. It's so good. And this is why they've tried to destroy him, because that's not how they think. When I say they, I mean the foreign policy establishment. These are true believers. These are American exceptionalists. These are people who believe that America is obligated by God to take care of the world. And Trump doesn't think that. So he's willing to, cut deals and pull out troops and shorten, deployments and maybe even close bases because he doesn't see any reason why we should be there. There's no God-given. He just wants America inside these beautiful borders to be as rich and as powerful and as happy as possible. The vision ain't bad. Now, exactly how he wants to get there is debatable, but that's why they want to kill him. So
Yeah.
On foreign policy, that's the only thing I would actually be sort of happy about with another Trump presidency. The rest of it, I just can't stand the idea of going through another 4 years of that craziness. But yeah, I do actually think that he would settle things down, at least not solve issues permanently, but I think there would be less death. And there was in his 4 years. It was like probably fewer deaths on his watch globally than any other president, even Jimmy Carter, possibly, except for Mosul and Raqqa when he killed a bunch of ISIS. But we're not super unhappy about that.
Mm-hmm.
So
you want to talk about the E. Jean Carroll case as well?
Wow. $83 million. And when was this? This allegedly happened in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
The 90s. Yeah. I was there. I was alive. Not only was alive, I was an adult. Not only was an adult, I was an adult in New York City, in Manhattan, about Bloomingdale's. I lived about 30 blocks from Bloomingdale's when that happened in the 90s. Well, I mean, the anti-groomer, anti-trans massive explosion of the last 2 years, the way that Ukraine and Gaza kind of eclipsed all domestic politics, kind of over the last couple of years, made us sort of forget. And like the decline of the BLM movement, we haven't seen a killing of a black man on video since George Floyd. Hasn't been to that. The campuses have been quiet. There have been no campus protests about systemic racism or date rape or any of that nonsense, for a couple of years now. And we forgot because of that. Wokeness on the left never left. That kind of vindictive anti-Trump, which is really in this case sort of an anti-masculine thing, never left, never even died down, especially in enclaves like Manhattan, where this damn case was tried. I mean, how is Trump possibly going to win? I mean, if I accused him of genocide in a Manhattan courtroom, I'd win. Right? I mean, it's Manhattan is 95% Democrat. I mean, so $83 million that a jury of, what was it, 9 people could unanimously agree. I guess it was unanimous. It might have been majority. I don't know, civil cases. Could agree that he deserved or she deserved $83 million in damages for him saying that she was a liar and mentally unstable, I think is it.
Yeah, the damages were for defamation. Yeah.
And he said what about her? That she was crazy, basically, right?
Yeah. And ugly.
Yeah,
but not my type. That's
83. When she accused him of basically rape,
mm-hmm.
and he said in response to that, she's crazy and ugly. Oh yeah, I wouldn't have sex with her.
Mm-hmm.
The damages from that are worth $83 million. So if you believe that, right, that woman was so damaged by that and that she's the victim here and that she deserves $83 million, we're going to need to have separate states. We're going to need to have secession. New York is going to have to go its own way, or, they could move to Long Island, and we could give them that. The Hamptons are there. The liberals love the Hamptons, great beaches, and so they'll be happy out there. But no, we can't. We're living in a different epistemological universe. I mean, we don't see realities the same way. And I, me, I don't think there's one reality, and so I'm fine. I grant that their reality is just as legitimate as mine. They see a world in which women are toddlers who are gravely damaged if a grown man says mean words to them. and need to be supported and propped up for being victims, celebrated for being victims. I mean, that's a good thing, that's feminism, that's justice, that's empowering for women. The idea that this is empowering for women. I need $83 million if you call me ugly. Says what about women? Says that they have the fortitude of a 3-year-old. It is the greatest insult to women I've ever heard of. Because in this case, it's material with a dollar amount attached to it. Like they're saying almost exactly how stupid and ignorant and juvenile and infantile women are. How helpless and pathetic women are. To the tune of $83 million, they're that pathetic and weak and hopeless and helpless and in need of a court backed up by cops with guns to save them and protect them and make their lives okay. They need the patriarchy, apparently, to survive, is the message of this decision. This is what feminism has been saying for decades now, except for a handful of cool, sex-positive feminists. But the vast majority of feminists have been saying this very thing for decades. Women must be saved from men like Donald Trump by other men like that judge, by the jurors, by liberal men like the men who are presidents of universities. They're the ones who need to save women, because women can't survive out there on their own without the protection of institutions, of the nation state, of courts. Holy shit. If I were a woman, I'd be so gravely offended by this. E. Jean Carroll is the enemy of feminism. She just set back women years and years and years and years. If that's how we think of women, then they should stay in the kitchen because they can't survive in the real world. They should stay in the kitchen.
I've got the clip of her celebrating on MSNBC, and she gets asked, are you going to donate that money to a women's shelter? And her answer was pretty in line with her character and pretty illuminating.
You've talked about using some of Trump's money that you're about to get to help shore up women's rights. Do you know what that might be, what that might look like?
Yes, Rachel. Yes.
Tell me.
I had such great ideas for all the good I'm going to do with this money. First thing, Rachel, you and I are going to go shopping. We're going to get completely new wardrobes, new shoes, motorcycle for Crowley, new fishing rod for Robbie. Rachel, what do you want? Penthouse? It's yours,
Nothing.
Rachel. Penthouse and France? You want France? You want to go fishing in France? No? Oh, all right, okay.
That's a joke.
All right, okay.
That's a joke.
That's a joke.
You might actually like her now.
In a way, yeah.
Right?
I mean, I was gonna say we're done now. I mean, great show, Michael. See you on the other side. Wow, cool. No, I appreciate that a lot. Yeah, no, wow. She just created about 100,000 new Trump voters with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, brother, I got to wrap up now.
Okay.
If you want to join us, we're gonna go to right now. Unregistered Live. We hang out on a Zoom meeting after Unreported, and you can go to, got the URL there? Thank you. So fast. Patreon.com/unregistered. Join up at any level, click the URL, and you'll see us there in the Zoom. Michael, you are the man. I'll see
Thanks.
you soon.
Yeah, I gotta wrap up on Taylor Swift real quick.
Okay.
Because I think it's important. Long story short, this is why Republicans lose everything. Your wives and daughters and sisters love Taylor Swift. Just let them have this one thing. like to explain the level of psyop at work here makes you sound like a crazy person, because you are. Just sit down, enjoy the football game. Let the cheerleader have the quarterback boyfriend. Let this be a good moment for everybody. Why can't you have fun with the rest of us? Eat your chicken wings. Have a good time at the Super Bowl.
And don't watch Ben Shapiro rap.
Yeah.
Most importantly.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that very important intervention with
Yeah.
all you conservative boys out there.
Mhm.
All right. Peace, everyone.
Peace. See you.